EMS Education Course Series, Human Body and the Cardiovascular System, Part 1, Exploring Perfusion and Circulatory Dynamics. Course Learning Objectives: Define perfusion. Describe the three basic components of perfusion and explain how the heart and blood vessels affect adequate perfusion. To understand the physiology of the cardiovascular system, let us start with the term perfusion. Perfusion is the continuous delivery of oxygenated blood and nutrients to tissue cells of the body, and the removal of carbon dioxide, CO2, and waste products. Let's look at the importance of fluid dynamics with perfusion. The three components of perfusion, also called the cardiovascular triad, are 1. The blood medium, which is a specialized biological transport fluid that carries dissolved gases, nutrients, and waste products throughout the network. 2. Vascular pipes that make up the complex network of expanding and constricting vessels that safely hold and distribute the circulating blood. And 3. The cardiac pump, a robust muscle structure working as a physical force generator to pump fluids around the expansive human body. Now let's look at each of these components. Adequate perfusion starts with a sufficient volume of blood in the body to carry oxygen. Red blood cells, or RBC, contain hemoglobin molecules that capture and release oxygen. The liquid part of the blood is plasma. Without adequate red blood cells and plasma, oxygen will not be able to travel from the lungs to the rest of the body. Now let's look at the pump and pipelines. Often compared to a plumbing structure, the circulatory system has a pump, the heart, that moves blood throughout the body. Moving oxygen-rich blood away through the arteries requires a high pressure. Moving blood through veins containing CO2 and waste products towards the heart requires a lower pressure. Capillaries connect both arteries and veins to the cells, allowing for the transfer of oxygen, nutrients, CO2, and waste products. Here, the pressure gradient is low. To make this plumbing analogy work properly, there must be adequate pressure or friction within the pipes to move fluid in the right direction. This pressure within the walls of the blood vessels is known as systemic vascular resistance, SVR. If there is not enough pressure, then the blood will slow down or stop moving altogether. If there is too much pressure, then the vessels will become stressed, hypertension, and possibly rupture and aneurysm. To evaluate circulatory functional capacity, clinicians calculate cardiac output, which is the total volume of blood pumped every minute. The cardiac output is measured by multiplying the heart rate, how fast the heart is beating, by the stroke volume, how hard the heart squeezes on each contraction. If the heart beats within the normal range and the heart muscle is strong enough to eject adequate amounts of blood on each contraction, then we can say the body will be adequately perfused. Here is an example of why understanding cardiac output is important. Let's say a patient has a heart rate that is high. Does this mean that the cardiac output is adequate? It could be if the stroke volume was equally sufficient. If the stroke volume is inadequate, such as with damage to the heart tissue reducing the force to contract, then the cardiac output would be less than normal. We will look at this in more detail, including ways that the body compensates for changes that impact cardiac output in the cardiovascular system, Physiology Part 2 presentation. To summarize, perfusion needs a combination of fluid dynamics with a functioning pump and pipeline. The fluid dynamics requires an ideal pressurized volume of blood, red blood cells and plasma, containing high hemoglobin saturation to effectively oxygenate tissue cells. Loss of blood volume immediately degrades cellular oxygen delivery. The pump and pipelines rely on reactive muscular blood vessels supporting vascular resistance alongside a strong, healthy heart delivering stable cardiac output. All of these components must communicate effectively, adjusting to the body's demands. Interactive review. To see the answer to each question, click on the corresponding link. Question 1. How does blood loss affect cellular perfusion? Question 2. Explain systemic vascular resistance in your own words. Question 3. Why might cardiac output remain low despite a high heart rate? How does blood loss affect cellular perfusion? Blood loss decreases the volume within the blood vessels. This restricted blood flow deprives cells of oxygen. Explain systemic vascular resistance in your own words. The pressure within the walls of the blood vessels is known as systemic vascular resistance. Why might cardiac output remain low despite a high heart rate? Cardiac output has two components: heart rate and stroke volume. If the stroke volume is poor, then cardiac output will remain low even if the heart rate increases.